Hey guys, Tom here again from synthhacker.com. Welcome back to another tutorial for Massive. In this video we're going to be looking at this bass sound from JAUZ's track Deeper Love. Really cool sound, and you'll have actually seen me and heard me mess around with a macro down here, because what I heard in the track was it was actually in the drop there's a couple of different bass sounds. I think there was like 3 different sounds at one point, which to be honest were probably just different sounds altogether, but I found a way to kind of achieve 2 different sounds with just one macro. You'll have heard like the first bass sound is kind of like a dubsteppy, like wobble type sound, and then you'll have heard it go to like a plucky type bass. And you can achieve this really easily with just one macro, which I'll show you towards the end of the sound. But yeah, pretty cool sound, really heavy like bass house sound. Kind of similar to the house wub that I did in Serum, but you know, in Massive, for you guys that prefer Massive, and it is kind of just an overall different sound as well. This I think works much better as like a standalone bass sound. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and initialize the preset by just clicking New Sound. As always, guys, if you haven't done so already, definitely go ahead and check out my website over at synthhacker.com to check out my presets for Massive and Serum. That really helps support me and the channel. You'll get your hands on some nice presets as well. And yeah, thanks so much if you decide to check that out. I really do appreciate it. But without further ado, let's start making this really cool bass sound. So the first thing we're going to do, as always, is start off in the voicing tab. This is a bass sound, so it is monophonic. However, what I decided to do for this sound, really to kind of make it sound as big as possible, and really get as kind of much as I could out of Massive, was just use a few different voices of unison. This really kind of helped to thicken up the sound, both because it's got more voices, and then I also used this pan position down here to kind of spread the different voices across the stereo field as well, and also of course make sure that pitch cutoff switched on so we can slightly detune the voices. I did, however, make sure that the voices were only very slightly detuned to kind of give it that more metallic sound. If you start kind of detuning it too much, it kind of loses, I don't know kind of how to explain it, but it kind of doesn't sound as kind of concise and as one sound. It starts to become a little bit blurry. So to make sure you get that nice metallic sound, just make sure that it's only ever so slightly moved to the right. And yeah, like I said, make sure that these voices are being spread across the stereo field as well. You don't want to go too crazy with this, because otherwise it's just going to be kind of it's not going to really sit well in the mix. It's just going to dominate it too much. But just adding a little bit of stereo width makes it sound really big and cool. The next thing, I guess in the oscillator tab, just make sure that there's no glide on the sound, and you know, you don't really need any vibrato on this sound either, so I'll just take that off as well. Moving into the oscillator section, I did set up oscillator 1 as a sub oscillator. So what I did was pitch this down 2 octaves, set it to a the sine square wavetable, and move this all the way to the left, so we're just getting a pure sine wave. And then what I'm going to do is turn the amplitude all the way down, because what we're actually going to do is make this oscillator bypass all the filters and effects and everything, so we've just got a nice consistent low end. And you can do this by going into the routing tab, going to oscillator 1 here and clicking B, and just make sure that this is being routed to the EQ and it's bypassing the effects as well, because we're going to be using a dimension expander, which we don't want the sub bass going through. And then moving into oscillator 2, I also pitched this down 2 octaves, make sure it's switched on. And then I used the sine square wavetable again, but we're just going to be using a square wave. You know, at the end of the sound, you can kind of play around with the wavetable position to kind of get the tone that you're happy with. But I just used a full-on square wave for the main kind of interesting part of the sound. Make sure intensity is full, that amplitude is full, and make sure this is being routed through filter 1. And then, of course, because this is quite a modern bass sound, and a lot of the kind of these kind of like modern bass house sounds and future bass sounds use a lot of phase modulation, which is otherwise known as FM modulation, which you'll have seen me use a lot of times in the Serum tutorials that I've been doing as well. So we're gonna make the modulation oscillator apply phase modulation to oscillator 2, and we're going to keep this at the default pitch. It has a really interesting effect, phase modulation, when you use a higher pitch to modulate a lower pitch. I find that that always gives the best results, but obviously you can kind of play around with that. And then I made sure that there's some consistent phase modulation going on, but what I also did was set up an envelope 3, which is also modulating. It's going to be modulating the filter cutoff in just a second, and also some distortion as well. I set this up so that we kind of get a change in modulation over time, and this is a really, really powerful way to add some like movement and a bit of kind of dynamic to the sound. So for this envelope, what I did was just kind of add a little bit of attack. You'll have heard in the original sound at the start, you'll have heard that it's kind of not got very much attack. It's kind of like a bit more like a dubstep wub or something like that, which is really quite cool. It's quite different to a lot of the bass sounds that you kind of used to hearing in like future bass and stuff, which is why I think it kind of stands out quite a lot. So we're going to give it a little bit of attack, not too much, because we do kind of want it to have a little bit. And then I just brought the decay back a little bit and brought the sustain down and just brought the release up a little bit as well. And then I, like I said, use this to modulate the phase modulation, but also I'm going to use it to modulate the cutoff in the filter section. We're going to use a low pass 4-pole 24 dB filter. We're going to bring the resonance all the way down and drag and drop this envelope onto our cutoff, and I'll just show you what we've got now. So you can hear it's already got that like really nice tone that we're looking for and the nice movement really quickly. That didn't take long at all. And there's a few other things we've got to do to kind of polish up the sound a little bit. One thing that I did was go into the insert. Make sure that your insert 1 is after the filter. Some people have had trouble in the past because I didn't show the root in tab, and for some reason there a nit patch had the inserts in different places to mine. I don't really know why that is. But yeah, just make sure that the insert is after filter 1, which is obviously where our signal is being passed through. And then go into the insert, and we're just going to add a little bit of distortion using a parabolic shaper. You could try some different effects if you wanted as well. This is kind of where you can get a little bit creative. But I found the parabolic shaper kind of brought me closest to the original sound. And again, I'm going to use the same envelope that we used to modulate the phase modulation and also the cutoff frequency. To control the amount of drive that the distortion's actually having. And like I said, this is just another way to add some kind of like dynamics and interest and movement to the sound, really. Really, really cool. I'm just going to bring the cutoff down a little bit because it does seem to have too many high frequencies at the minute. Next, what did I do next? Move into the effects section, and what we're going to add is, just to make the sound even bigger, we're going to use the dimension expander. And what I usually do with this is bring the size all the way down. Otherwise, if it's too high, you kind of get like this delay type sound, which we don't want. We just want to kind of make the sound a bit bigger while still kind of remaining as one coherent sound. And then we're going to leave the dry wet around what it is, or maybe just boost it a little bit, and I'll show you the effect that this has now. So you can hear that really kind of expands it across the stereo image a little bit, which is really, really cool. Next, in the EQ section, I just did a few subtle things. Really, I boosted the high shelf just a little bit, and also I found a frequency around here to boost really kind of brought out some of the main characteristics of the sound. You can just kind of fine tune this to like whatever you think sounds best, really, or even just use an external EQ as well. And I think that pretty much covers the sound. Some really cool stuff in the sound. It's kind of a really interesting kind of take on the bass house kind of sound. And I'll just quickly also show you the macro that I set up in the beginning to kind of change it from the kind of like wubby bass sound into more of like a pluck-like sound. I just set up a pretty basic macro. First of all, just on the filter cutoff, because I noticed like when in the track when it changes to like a pluck bass, it's got kind of less harsh high frequencies and it's kind of a bit deeper. So the first thing I did was just ever so slightly move the cutoff down a little bit, and then the next thing I did was just put the macro on the attack of envelope 3, and what this will do is when you push it up, the attack will kind of go less. So it kind of has this more like pluck-like sound to it, really. And another thing I forgot to do was also just edit the amplitude envelope of the sound, which I just kind of brought the sustain down on a little bit because it was a little bit high. And I'll quickly show you that the effect that this macro now has. Really, really cool, and that's just a really cool way to kind of switch bass sounds up in your track. I definitely recommend playing around with that and other bass sounds that you use as well. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything in the sound, guys. Hopefully you got a lot out of this tutorial and learnt a thing or two. If you did, please like the video. It really helps support me on the channel, and also subscribe to stay up to date with future videos. If you haven't done so already, again, go check out my website over at synthhacker.com to check out my presets for Massive and Serum. And yeah, that covers everything. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.